Hello, it's Father Rich coming to you from the main hallway in the rectory and the front door. We were here talking about St. Teresa of Avila and the interior castle and the 3D puzzle here. But we're shooting the other way so you get a feel for the actual doorway. You might be able to see the stairway. It goes upstairs and then the dining room entry over there. But the thing that brought my mind to this place for today's topic was the painting here of this river. And because the story is about a man who discovered the biggest river in North America. The essay is called Traveling to Unknown Shores. It's our next series and next in our series of how the church has changed the world. And the man they're speaking about is Jacques Marquette, who was a Jesuit. He came to the North America in 1659. Not long after a group of Jesuits had all been martyred by the Native Americans. This is actually a guidebook or a little summary of the story. It's a kind of a combination, a little bit of a comic strip, but also shows the shrines. There is the Shrine of the North American Martyrs in Arsville, New York, which is in the eastern part of the state, and then up in Midland, Ontario is the Canadian North American Martyr Shrine. The group of us who went on the Canada pilgrimage from OLP a couple of years ago stopped there and got to see the location not too far from Toronto. But so here comes Marquette. He's also a Jesuit. He knows that these Jesuits have been martyred these last decades before he got there. But yet he still wants to prevail in bringing the light of the gospel to this new land and also discovering more about it. And claiming it for French Catholic France. So he went and founded a few settlements in the upper and lower peninsula of Michigan, right at the intersection of Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, and really the first European settlements in Michigan. But he would hear the natives talk about this grand river, this great river, the Mississippi or something that they called it, which we get our name from. So he decided that he had to go search for it. So he and another man called Joliet, who, if you remember, there's diocese named after both of these men, who was a layman. They took some natives and they went and sought it. So they went down off of the Lake Michigan, eventually found their way to the Wisconsin River, where it empties into, I believe, into the Mississippi right there at Green Bay, or maybe it's Green Bay where they started. But anyway, so they made their way down to Wisconsin, eventually got to the Mississippi. And then they were making their way south. They didn't know where it came out. They heard of it emptying into this great sea. They didn't know, could that be the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico? Could this be the route to Asia that everybody was looking for? And so they made their way down. They got all the way down to the Arkansas River and then started to see hostile Native Americans. So they turned around. They went back up another route via the Illinois River and then made their way back up into Lake Michigan. But they, at some point, they got on the Ohio in there too. But so they went 2,400 miles on this trek. Not having any supplies, just eating off the land, with a few guides. I think there were 6 people and a couple of these just hollowed out, tree bark canoes. Really an amazing feat. And unfortunately, he would come back. He would have an encounter with the Peorian Indians, and they would actually accept the gospel. There's a very touching exchange where the chief and the natives welcomed Marquette and the gospel about the God of all creation. But so he left there, and unfortunately on his trek he incurred some illness, and he would die on Mackinac Island at the age of 37. So only being in North America, I think, for about a total of 8 or 9 years. But really had an amazing faith. He really had a great devotion to the Blessed Mother. And when they talked about going on this trek and how perilous it was, he really saw this as being protected by Mary in a sense, and seeking her intercession. So very devout man, They talk about how in this essay, it kind of mentioned that when Mother Teresa was caring for this very kind of bad situation, and where there was a bad odor, and she was serving this person dying, and a reporter that was observing it saying, I wouldn't do that for $1,000,000. And Mother Teresa saying, neither would I. That not $1,000,000 is not the motivation. And they kind of mentioned in the essay that wasn't the motivation for Marquette and these other missionaries. It wasn't for any worldly gain. It was really motivated to bringing the love and truth of Jesus to the world, and taking that call to evangelize, so seriously. So interestingly, Marquette's cause for sainthood has not really gotten much traction. We know the North American martyrs. There's some other Jesuits in those years, some Canadian, French Canadian from the further north that have been canonized. But for whatever reason, Marquette's cause hasn't really gotten a lot of traction. But still a notable and heroic man, and effort that we have found the Mississippi, and we know that the church was a big part of discovering this continent and helping us have exposure, not doing it just, for the money and for the gain, but doing it to build up the kingdom of God. So we're grateful for these North American martyrs and Catholics who came to, be willing to give it all to help establish our faith in our church over here, and we are still here because of it. So we owe them everything. So we're grateful for that, and so thanks for joining me today. Have a great day, and God bless.